We're going to explore strategies to incorporate formative assessments into our professional development plans. Before we explore strategies to incorporate formative assessments into our professional development plans, let's take a moment to quickly distinguish between formative assessments and summative assessments. Formative assessments are designed to inform educators and instructional designers on the learner's progress toward achieving the learning objective. This information allows professional development facilitators and educators to intervene and further support the learner as they progress toward achieving the learning objective. And it also provides instructional designers and educators with feedback so that they can continue to reflect on their practice and refine their professional development practice to improve it with each iteration. Summative assessments, however, are evaluative tools. They are often given to students at the end of a chapter, a unit, or a semester to evaluate the learner's progress toward achieving the learning objectives. Because summative assessments are evaluative tools, they are not incorporated in professional development sessions. Professional development sessions are opportunities for teachers and educators to expand their professional toolkit. They are not designed as an evaluative opportunity. For that reason, professional development sessions will not include summative assessments, but rather all the assessments will be formative to help us support the learner and refine our professional development practice, both as designers and facilitators. So now that we understand what formative assessments are and how they are different from summative assessments, we're going to address the question, why is it important to incorporate formative assessments into our professional development plans? Formative assessments allow us to check for understanding. We have to remember that just because we are teaching something, it does not mean that the learner is actually learning it. We want to always be checking for understanding to make sure that individuals, small groups, and the whole group are progressing toward achieving the learning objective. Formative assessments also provide us with feedback to inform our professional development practice, both as instructional designers and professional development facilitators. When we are designing formative assessments, we want to make sure that they are directly aligned with our learning objectives. We were very planful and very careful when we designed our learning objectives, and we want to be equally as careful and planful when we design our formative assessment strategies. We want to always ask ourselves, are participants achieving the learning objectives? Are they making progress toward achieving the learning objectives? And we want to check in with individuals, with small groups, and with the whole group as well. If we find that an individual or a small group or a whole group is struggling with a certain functionality or concept or skill that we are trying to teach them, then it allows us with an opportunity to intervene in that moment and provide them with further support. We can work one-on-one with an individual or with a small group. We may also stop and model something to the whole group. We can assign a peer tutor to an individual or to a small group. We can provide them with further resource or some way support them so that they are progressing toward achieving that learning objective and that they are successful during the professional development session. So that's one way that we can react with the information that we get from formative assessment. And the other way that we can react from the information that we receive during our formative assessments is after the session. If we see that the majority of folks were struggling with a certain concept or skill, then it is a great opportunity for us to reflect on how we are designing and delivering our professional development. We may have to reflect on how we are designing and delivering our direct instruction, how we are planning for time, how we are grouping our participants, or another part of our professional development plan. But the information that we receive from formative assessments allows us, one, to intervene and ensure participant success, and two, it allows us to reflect on our own practice and refine it each time so that we are continually improving as professional development designers and facilitators. So we have discussed what formative assessments are and why they are important to include within our professional development plans. Our next question is, when should we incorporate formative assessments into our professional development sessions? Formative assessments should take place ongoing throughout the session and also at the end of the session. Ongoing formative assessment should take place both after direct instruction, during guided practice, and during independent practice. We should be in constant and continuous communication with our learners to always make sure that they are understanding what we are trying to teach them, and if not, that we have an opportunity or we design an opportunity to support them further. Formative assessments are also included at the end of the professional development session. And although at the end of the session we don't have an opportunity to intervene and support the learner further necessarily, it does provide us with a lot of feedback, a lot of data for us to reflect on our own practice and refine our professional development design and facilitation practice. At the end of the session, we can assess the participants' progress toward achieving the learning objectives, and we also have an opportunity to assess the participants' level of engagement throughout the session, and we'll talk about that more in a moment. We've discussed what formative assessments are, why they are important, and when we should incorporate them. And now we're going to talk about how we can incorporate formative assessments into our professional development plans. And we're going to start by talking about ongoing formative assessment strategies. And there are many out there, but we've decided to highlight a few for you to get you going. The first two that we're going to talk about are hand signals and visuals, and these are very effective ongoing formative assessment strategies, or checking for understanding strategies as they are also known, when you're posing a question to the whole group. So you're posing a question to your entire audience, and this happens often after direct instruction. So if you're looking to check for understanding after direct instruction to make sure that the learners were learning what you were trying to teach them, you can pose a question to the whole group. One very popular hand signal is the thumbs up and thumbs down hand signal. So for example, if you ask the whole group after your direct instruction, are you able to identify and find the crop tool? Give me a thumbs up if you can. Give me a thumbs down if you need further support. And in that moment, you would receive immediate feedback from each individual. And at that moment, you could intervene by supporting individuals or having a colleague support their partner or their neighbor. And if you see that for some reason the entire group is unable to do so, or the majority of the group is unable to do so, you could model again for the whole group. So hand signals are a very easy, quick strategy to check for understanding for the whole group. You can do thumbs up or thumbs down, as we just talked about. Another popular one is called fist to 5, where participants rate their level of engagement on a scale of 1, or level of understanding, I should say, on a scale of 1 to 5. You could also do 1 to 3 to make it a little bit more simple and have participants indicate with 1 finger that they do understand, 2 fingers that they have some questions, and 3 fingers that they have many questions and that they need some additional help. Along the line with hand signals are visuals, and visuals are often incorporated in the same way. When you're posing a question to the whole group and you're checking for the whole group's understanding, some facilitators will provide each individual participant with a red card, a yellow card, and a green card. And when they ask a question to check for understanding, they will instruct participants to raise the green card if they do understand, the yellow card if they have some questions, and the red card if they don't understand and they need more support. And then they will know with which individuals they can intervene and provide further support, or if they see that the majority of the group is not understanding or is struggling with that concept or skill or functionality, they may decide to quickly provide instruction to the whole group or model that functionality or skill to the whole group again. Observations and questioning. Observations and questioning are particularly useful during guided practice and independent practice. As you're circulating the room, you can observe each individual's work or each small group's work, and also their conversations. Are they talking about the appropriate things? Are they on task? Are they asking the right questions? And you can ask them some questions. You can design these questions ahead of time to ensure that they are aligned with the learning objectives so that you're focused and they're focused. And you can also just step in and say, how are you achieving the learning objectives? How is your progress? Where do you think you need help? How can I support you? And also, again, the project or the task that you ask participants to complete will serve as evidence of their learning, and you can use that as a way to check for their understanding. If you're seeing that an individual or a small group is not progressing or creating the project in the way that indicates that they are understanding the learning objectives, it's a good opportunity for you to intervene and provide further support in some way. We've discussed strategies to incorporate formative assessments throughout our professional development sessions. These are called ongoing assessment strategies, also known as checking for understanding strategies. And we also want to be sure to include formative assessments at the end of our professional development sessions. This will allow us to, one, check for understanding, and it also allows us for an opportunity to check for engagement in a different way that we weren't quite able to do throughout the session. It is, of course, important to assess the participants' progress toward achieving the learning objectives, but it is also super important to assess their level of engagement. We want to be sure that the professional development sessions that we are creating are very useful and engaging to our participants. If the material and the content that we're presenting is not useful for them, then it really doesn't matter how they are learning or progressing toward the learning objectives. They may never apply that to their actual professional development practice. So some very important questions that you may want to consider asking, among others, are: was this professional development experience valuable to you? And were the contents relevant and practical to your professional needs? And will you apply what you learned to your teaching practice? If what we are creating and presenting is not valuable, and if they're not going to apply it, then it really doesn't matter how they're progressing toward the learning objectives. You want to be very mindful that when we're designing and delivering, we are taking steps to really meet the needs of our participants. So we've reviewed some ongoing formative assessment strategies, and we've discussed why end of session formative assessments are important to both assess the learner's progress toward the learning objective as well as their level of engagement throughout the session. Three strategies, and there are many more, but three popular strategies to incorporate to include formative assessment to the end of your professional development plans are exit slips, surveys, and projects as evidence. An exit slip is simply a piece of paper that you ask participants to provide you, to write on to provide you with feedback, and then you make sure that each person gives you that exit slip before they leave your session. And this is a very quick strategy, an easy strategy if you don't have a more formal survey already produced and ready to hand out. You could simply ask participants to write on their exit slip one thing that was most effective for their learning during your session and one thing that you could improve to make your next professional development session more effective, or two things that were that they could highlight as most effective for their learning, and two things that they would recommend that you refine or change the next time that you offer the session. You could also design and develop more elaborate surveys that offer multiple choice questions and short answer questions that survey your participants' learning as well as their level of engagement. And these are very useful when you're looking to collect data, and very useful when we're looking to refine our practice and see where is it that we can really make some adjustments to make it more effective. And again, you can use their projects as a type of formative assessment at the end of your session. If you're able to look at the group's projects and figure out how did they progress as a group, and is there one thing or one area, one skill, one functionality that they were not successful with, then how can we reflect on our design and facilitation practice to make sure that we're more effective the next time we offer this professional development session. So we've discussed formative assessments, we've discussed what they are, why they are important, when to incorporate them throughout the session as well as at the end, and some strategies for both ongoing formative assessments and end of session formative assessments.